Welcome to the fifth lecture in the series for the PhD students on the course of Advances in Employability Development. So far, we have seen that it is very important to build such skills like team building spirit. We have seen that we should be master of our own destiny. We should script our own program. We should be able to act according to our agenda rather than those imposed by others on us. So, in order to build the team spirit, it is first important to build ourselves. So, there are two stages of development of team spirit. First is the development of the individual, which we call as the personal victory, where a person becomes independent from dependent. And then comes the social victory, where a person seeks to be interdependent from independent. So, first of all, we have to win ourselves. That means the personal victory precedes the social victory. First habit which we learned was that of being proactive. Being proactive means between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space we decide our response, and that response is according to the program which we have developed for ourselves and not the program which others have developed for us. So, first habit we had seen was that of to be proactive. The second habit which we learned was that of to begin with the end in mind. That means, we have to be clear as to what outcome we expect out of a communication, out of a transaction, and according to that outcome, or according to that result, according to that future state, we have to build our strategies. So, that was the second habit. Third habit was to put first thing first. That means, that was the habit of personal management, to do right thing in the right way. And then in the last lecture, we saw the concept of emotional account. Emotional account is like a bank account in which we deposit and withdraw trust. Trust is the currency in the emotional account, and we saw the habit of thinking win-win. Today, we will go to the fifth habit, the principle of emphatic communication. The habit is called seek first to understand and then be understood. In the book, there is a very good example which was given. It is like this, that a person goes to an eye specialist and he says that I am not able to see properly clearly. So, the eye specialist says that okay, there should be some problem with your specs, let me see, and he gives his specs, his specs to him, and he asks him to wear it. He says it is more blurred now, because the specs which are used by the optometrician is no longer, are not designed according to the need of the patient, and he is not able to see it. This is the way we do it in most of our communication. We try to see other person's perspective from our autobiography, from our experiences. The experience of the other persons may be extremely different than ours, but we see his position from our experiences, and that is where the problems come. So, just as you cannot use my specs, similarly you cannot use my sets of experiences, my position in totality. So, this is the principle of trying to understand other persons from his position, from his perspective, from his frames of references. The concept which we are going to learn in this particular lecture are the following, that we should diagnose before we prescribe. Suppose you go to a doctor with some sickness, he will check your pulses, he will check your BP, he will check you thoroughly, he will understand your body, and then he will give the remedies, he will give a prescription, he will give the medicines. It is not going to happen this way, that he gives the medicine first and then he checks your body. So, in the same way, we have to understand the problems, understand the other person before we give our solutions to him. First we should learn and then we should teach. First we should understand, in the academic field, we should understand our target group, our students first, what kind of makeup he has, what kind of pre-knowledge, preconcepts he has, what kind of misconceptions he may be having, he may be harboring, and those misconceptions, those things must be elevated, must be removed, then only we will be able to teach properly. So, first diagnose, then prescribe. First we learn and then we teach. Apart from this book, I am giving a reference from another book which is called as Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. It is a very famous book. The crux of the book, the core of the book is something like this, that there are some kinds of people which psychology we identify with women. They may or may not be women, but there are certain kinds of people who want to give out their emotions. They want to, just like steam comes out of a pressure cooker, they want to see, they want to express themselves. Like women, for example, there is a dialogue between a husband and a wife. Husband says, I don't know why you are not happy. I have given you everything. I have given you a bungalow. We have enough money. We have everything in the life which people ask for, and still you are not happy. And the wife says that you just don't listen to me. So, the wife's position is that you don't listen to me. You are not. I am expressing something, and you are not trying to understand. You are not trying to empathize with me. You are not trying to give. You are not giving me the shoulder to weep on. You are not giving me the air which I wish to let out. So, this is the position of a woman. It is a psychological concept. It need not be a physiological concept, or we are not deriding either women or men, but we are saying that there are two kinds of mentality. One mentality is that of discussing problem, that of expressing the problems. They may or may not be seeking the solution. They just want you to listen to you, and they just want you to listen and have empathy. There are other sets of people which the book identifies with men. They have the mentality of solutions. Suppose you are on a wrong track and the wife says that, this is where I think there is some problem, and the wife or the female, the women, they wish to communicate their problem, and the person on the other hand, he just is in a hurry to find the solution. So, men in that book have been identified as the person who is very keen to offer a solution. So, when we have such pair of people where one person is trying to express herself and other person is just trying to find the solution and he is seeking data, the woman is giving emotions and the person is receiving data. So, this kind of transaction will never be a complementary transaction. This kind of transaction will never be a happy ending transaction. Both the parties would be unhappy, because one is giving something, other is receiving something else. So, this kind of transaction does not become a compatible one. I wish to say that we are part woman and part man. From the analogy or from the point of view of the book, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. We have to sometimes act like a male and sometimes we should act like a female. In that sense, sometimes we wish to express ourselves, our feelings, not trying to seek solution, but to just give vent to our feelings. On the other hand, we should at times try to find the solutions. So, both things, expressing ourselves, listening to others' feeling and finding solutions, both are part of the game, and we should have a balance between the two. Now, let us come to the other concept. When we are talking about this particular habit, we are talking about communication. I am talking to you, you are listening to me. Somebody writes a book, other people read it. So, it is called communication. I am expressing myself and you are receiving it. So, when we are talking about communication, we are talking about inputs and outputs. The operation of communication is reading, writing, listening and speaking. In literature or in our social atmosphere, in our social setting, we have been taught to speak. You might have heard of public speaking courses. There are certain courses where they teach you how to speak in public. But have you ever heard of a public listening course or a listening course, or have you been ever taught how to listen properly? We take it for granted. We assume that if somebody is speaking, listening is a passive kind of a thing. You don't have to, you can listen it, you can understand it. We don't give too much of emphasis on listening skills. But listening is very important. You can, if you wish to influence other people, you will be able to influence only if you have understood them. Because unless you know what soil it is, you will not be able to know what kind of seed will work on that particular soil. So, we have to understand the other people, then only you will be able to influence that person. You will be able to communicate with him. You will be able to establish contact with that person. So, emphasis is on character and not on technique in these particular sets of lectures which we have given. We do not wish to give you a solution which you can work on 5 minutes and it will work. We wish you to develop yourself so that you build your character, and once the character has been built, it becomes your second nature and you will act according to those principles and you will be successful in communicating, in achieving your goals. So, our emphasis is not on techniques, but it is on building of the character, because it is said that action speaks volumes, action speaks louder than the words. There is an example which I read somewhere, that Mahatma Gandhi was imprisoned and the prison authorities did not wish to have him to communicate with other people. So, rather than putting him in a solitary prison where he was alone, he was given another person, another prisoner was there with him, but he did not understand his language. The person belonged to some, he was such that he did not understand any of the language which Gandhi could speak or understand. But even then, that person became loyal to this person because he could sense him through his actions, the way he conducts himself, the way he walks, the way he asks for him. They established contact very easily in very few times and they became very good friends. They developed this desire to communicate with one another, and very easily, very simply they could communicate through their actions. So, if you are really interested in some person, you will find ways and means to communicate. It is also said that whenever we talk or whenever we write or whenever we communicate with words. Actually, the words convey very little of the message. Only 10% of the meaning is communicated by words. More than that is communicated through the gestures, through the emotions, through the way one conducts oneself, and more is further conveyed by the actions which we take. Suppose you hear a very good lecturer and a very good politician, and he speaks very fluently, very emotively, and he communicates with you properly. But next day you come to know that this person did totally opposite of whatever he was saying, whatever he has said to you, those memories will be washed out. They will be antithesis to you. They will have totally opposite effect than whatever he had communicated to you the day earlier. So your actions are more important, and actions comes from your character. So we wish to develop your character, we wish to develop the person through character building. Once the character has been built, he will have actions coming as a natural flow. Now, here we are saying that we seek to understand first. So, let us come to the first clause of the habit. It is to seek to understand. Now, sometimes we hear such communication between a father and another person, for example, our author. Somebody comes to the author and says, I just can't understand my son, he just doesn't listen to me. So, the author says, let me repeat, you are saying that you are not able to understand your son and that he is not listening to you. He said, that's quite right. Okay, then he says that you are not able to understand because he is not listening to you. He says, yes. But then he says, do you listen to him? Then, then it comes to him that in order to understand, you will be able to understand only when, suppose you want to understand me, you will understand me only when I have communicated with you, I have talked to you, I have spoken to you. So, the question is whether this father listens to his son. If he is listening to his son, then only there is a question of whether he understands or he cannot understand. He says that he cannot understand, that means he is not listening to his son. Then this thing dawns to him and he says, no, there is no need to understand him because I have gone through it. I have gone through all the experiences which he has gone through. There is no need for him to speak to me. I should understand him. But then this is where the problems are, that we don't listen to our son, don't listen to the other people. We just assume that this is what they have in mind, this is what they are going through, and whatever they are going through is same as we have gone through. Without probing the other person, we interpolate, we estimate what is going on in their head. So, there comes the skill of emphatic listening. When we listen, we can listen in a number of manners. Sometimes we hear, we don't listen, we just hear. We are present there, we are pretending to hear, but our minds are wandering here and there. We are not concentrating on what is being said. We don't want to be influenced by whatever one is saying. We just are not paying attention. This could be the lowest form of listening. There could be another form of listening where one could be a little bit more careful, one is listening, gathering information. Another form could be that of sympathetic listening, where we have a sympathy with the whatever one is saying. And the highest form of listening is that of empathy, where you are not only listening to whatever is being said, but you are putting your understanding, you are probing into the other person, finding out what is going on in his head, more than apart from whatever he is saying. Apart from whatever he is saying, what is his world, what experiences he has gone through, whatever conclusion he has drawn from his experience, what they are. Those things, once you understand, then you will be able to understand total and full meaning of whatever one is saying. Suppose there is a criminal. He has gone through very bad patches of life in his earlier childhood. He was deprived of everything and therefore he became a criminal. Once you listen to him, once you have empathy with him, then all layer by layer, like onion, layer by layer you are peeling off the onion, and you are going to the core of the thing. You are understanding the core of the character, and then you will be able to understand the pains, the problems, and the position of the prisoner or whatever the criminal he is. So, empathic listening is listening with empathy. As I might have already told you, there are number of words: empathy, apathy, antipathy, sympathy, like that. Pathy is a word which means pain. Empathy means having the same pain. Sympathy means having the similar pain. So, there is a little difference between sympathy and empathy. Suppose I have gone through the similar pains that you have gone through, then I may say that I am sympathetic with you, but if I feel the same pain, experiencing the same experiences which you have gone through, then I will say that I am having empathy with you, because I have borrowed your pain through the communication. I might not have really gone through the same experiences, but I might have borrowed, might have downloaded those pains from your communication. So, once you establish an empathetic communication style, then the communication becomes more proper, more vocal. So, empathic listening involves understanding the perspective of the other person, seeing the world from his eyes and his head. Once you do that, you are making a huge deposit in your emotional account. It goes without saying that you will definitely build more trust with those persons with whom you have empathy, who understand that you are understanding his pains, his problems, his world from his point of view. Then he will definitely because you become second to him, you become cloned to him, like that. And the natural problem or natural question comes is that if you involved so much into the communication that his world becomes your world, his ideas becomes your ideas, then it is quite possible that his values may become your values. So, if you are communicating with a criminal and you have empathy with him so much that you may think yourself like a criminal, you may identify yourself with that criminal, and you may yourself may become a criminal, which may be risking you may be losing your identity in the totality. So, this question is likely to come in your mind, that why should we do this way? If we should distance ourselves, then only we will be able to protect our identity, we will be able to protect ourselves from being a criminal or from being another person. So, this question is justified, and the answer to this question, why we still say that we should have empathic listening, is the answer lies in habit 1, 2 and 3. Habit 1, 2 and 3 involves identifying yourself, identifying your mission, vision about the society, about yourself, about the family, about the people you are concerned with, and that mission and vision, if it is intact, then you will not be losing your identity. You may be having an empathic listening, empathic way of communicating, but still you will preserve your ability, you will be able to preserve your core. That is what I had communicated in the last lecture also, when we were talking about think win-win. Why should we think win-win? We may lose in that process. So, this risk is there, but the solution to risk is that you build your core character first, and then only you communicate. Once you have done that, you should be fairly satisfied that you would not risk losing your identity. We are saying that we should diagnose first, and then we should prescribe. Just like going to a doctor, he finds out what sickness one has, what kind of infection one is suffering from, and then only he gives the medicine according to the need of the person, according to the need of the patient. One example has been given in the book. It is about the author's very small 3 months or 4 months kid who was suffering from diarrhea, and immediately they tried to establish contact with the doctor, but the doctor was in the middle of a game. He was in the theater, in a stadium, watching a very important, very important game, and then he was called. He gave a medicine on telephone. He said, I will talk to your chemist and I will give the I will prescribe the medicine accordingly based on whatever symptoms you have communicated to me on telephone. Then the author told his wife that, have you communicated to him that the daughter is only 3 months old, because the medicine for 3 months old may be different than that of an adult. So she rang back again. It was very embarrassing, because the person was again to be called from the stadium, and once he understood, he had not in the beginning understood that the patient was only 3 months old. So once he understood that the patient is a infant, he changed his medicine. So we have to, when we diagnose, we also understand the patient perfectly, what kind of allergies one has, what kind of drugs would not suit this person, what kind of drugs would more suit this particular person, what is the history of the person, what kind of prescription has been already given to him. If you have been given a lower antibiotic, you may not like to go to that lower antibiotic again, because they will not have any effect on you. So you will go for a higher antibiotic. So that kind of thing will come to the doctor only if he understands the history, he understands the patients. Similarly, it is said that a good lawyer is the one who prepares the case of the other person before he writes his own case. There are two parties in a conflict. My lawyer will try to understand whatever are our position. If we take this position, what will be the position the other person is going to take? And if the other person is going to take this position, then what should be my position? So he first builds the case from the other part, for the other party, and then considering that in mind, he builds our case. So this is it's a reverse kind of a process. Good salesman or a good salesman, they say they sell the product, but a professional salesman sells the ideas, the solutions. A good salesman will only, whatever brand sells the best, or for whatever brand he is getting most commission, he will try to sell those concepts, but in long run he will lose, because the customer will not be satisfied. But a good or a professional salesman will offer the complete solution, so that the consumer, the customer would be totally satisfied. A good teacher begins by assessing the class before teaching. A good teacher will communicate with his students and try to find out what kind of courses they have gone through, what kind of pre-knowledge they have, and then only he will design his own curriculum. Now, whenever we communicate in a normal manner, we communicate based on our scripts, which probably others have written for us. So when we do that, we normally have 4 kinds of responses, which are autobiographical. We are putting ourselves into that person's shoes without losing our experiences. We judge him, we give a judgment kind of a thing, that we either agree or disagree with the ideas which has been spoken by the other person. We either probe, or we advise, or we interpret motives using our frame of reference. We ourselves think and we ourselves judge that the other person is like that, and therefore he is thinking like that because he has this problem, that is why he is posing it this way, or something like that. When we do that, we normally end up with losing the trust. There is a dialogue in the book which has been very vastly given. It is lots of pages have been devoted to that dialogue. I would advise you to go through those dialogues in a very careful manner. It is a dialogue about a kid who is disliking the school. He says that there is nothing in the school, I do not want to go to the school, I would rather take a job, employment, do some job of carpenter or something like that. because the other person is doing that way and he is making some money. And the father, instead of listening to him properly, listening to him completely, he just admonishes him, he just rebukes him and says that education is more important. The same, when this dialogues in its it is in initial this thing is it takes place, then the trust between the father and the son, they do not build up. But if the father listens to his son with empathy, what will happen is the trust will build up, then the communication will be more proper and more effective. When we try to listen with empathy, there are steps. First step is to mimic. Suppose you wish to develop this style of this technique of listening with empathy, what you should do? The first step would be to mimic. Suppose the son says that I am done with the school, I do not want to go to the school, the school is horrible, something like that. The first step is to mimic it. It is like saying, okay, you are fed up with the school. He says, I am fed up with the school, and he says, the father says, you are fed up with the school. There is a kind of therapy, psychotherapy, which is called as Rogerian therapy. In Rogerian therapy, what they do is, what the therapist does is, he reflects whatever has been, whatever patient says. Suppose the patient says, I am feeling very good today. The therapist says, you are feeling very good today. Suppose the patient says, my father is a horrible person. You think your father is a horrible person. This is what the therapist would respond to. Now, what happens in the Rogerian therapy is that you establish a good contact with the patient. So, this step, first step of mimicking is like Rogerian therapy. Second step is that of rephrasing it. You rephrase it. In the third phase, you reflect the feeling, and in the fourth phase, you rephrase as well as you reflect. So, when you rephrase it, you are the person whom you are communicating with, he understands that you are giving more concentration to whatever is being said. In normal conversation, normally we do not listen to him, we just sensing that whatever is the problem, we just start giving solutions. But rather than that, suppose you just reflect or you mimic, then the other person will think that okay, he is at least listening to me. But when you go to the fourth phase of rephrasing with and reflection, that means you are putting your emotions into it, you are putting the content as well as the feelings into the conversation. Once you do that, once suppose he says that I am fed up with the school, the third stage would be, I think you feel, you are feeling bad about the school. This is, the school is the content, feeling bad is the feeling. So, that way we can build the conversation. Once you do that, suppose you keep on repeating with him, keep on doing this exercise, he will understand, he will be reflecting on his thought, because you have not given your thought at all. All you have done is you have just peeled up the onion. Whatever he has been saying, you have just reflected, you have just, whatever he has said, you have just mimicked it, you have just communicated it back to him. You have not given your content, your advices, your things to him. So, whatever conversation takes place is in a sense a monologue, because the person is seeing from your mouth his ideas. Once he does that, what happens is the solutions keeps on dawning on upon him. He will understand the things from his perspective, it is his ideas, but he is doing a sort of loud thinking. Once he does the loud thinking, he will understand the problems in his thought mechanism, and he is likely to get a solution out of it. This is the way an old philosopher Socrates used to work. He used to ask so many questions. Suppose somebody would say, this person is a brave person. He will say, why do you think he is a brave person? What makes him a brave person? He will say that this act of him was a brave act. Then he will go further into it. Why do you think this act was a brave act? He will keep on asking the questions. So, he has not given any of his own concept, any of his own ideas. He is just asking you the question on question on question. Once you keep on asking question n number of times, you will go to the deeper into the question, and once you go deeper into the solution to your own thought processes, the solution would come upon you. And it is like giving a psychological air. Suppose the air is sucked out of this room suddenly because of some creation, something like that happens. What do you do? Would you keep on listening to my lecture? No, you will just move out of the room. You will drop everything and just go where the air is. Similarly, when you have this kind of a dialogue, it gives you an air to breathe. It gives you an positive self image, and that image helps you build the good rapport with the communicator. It is also a creative exercise, because once you keep on listening to your own thoughts, maybe some solutions comes up, or you may think in a creative manner, and it makes the person to whom you are communicating responsible. In our earlier lecture, we had the idea of responsibility. Responsibility as a responsibility. You might remember it was our first lecture, that I am responsible. I am not saying that I have communicated, I am a kid and I say that I am fed up with the school, and it is your duty as parent to understand my feeling, and either whatever happens is your problem. Once you are putting the kid to make the analysis of his own thought processes, you are making him responsible. So, this is another outcome which comes out of the emphatic listening. Understanding and perception. Once we understand, see, everybody is a unique person. Everybody has his own unique sets of ideas, sets of experiences, and sets of principles. Same picture, some people see in that same picture, some people see a young woman and other people see a old lady. Both are right. It is only their perceptions are different. So, when parties have different perspective, then what can happen is they can think in a win-win. They recognize the individuality of the other parties, and they may think in a win-win manner. They can think in seeking to understand, and they can then develop the solution. They can resolve their conflicts, they can resolve their differences. Once they have understood that everybody has a different perspective, the perspective is different, not wrong or incorrect. Once the parties understand these things, what will happen is they may be encouraged to think win-win, and they may seek then to understand. First they will understand the other person, and then they will try to make themselves understood. You can suppose there is a communication between you and I about some transaction. I may ask you to write a contract. Whatever you wish to do, whatever you wish these things to happen, what would be the agreement between you and I? You write it from your point of view. Then I will read it. I will read it loud in front of you, and I will say, this clause says this. Do you really mean this thing is like that? You will say, yes, you are right, or you may say, no, this is not what I meant. I meant this. And I will, once this second stage is complete, I will understand your point of view perfectly and clearly. Once I have understood it, then I will place my concerns, my ideas and my way of the agreement. Once you have known that your points have been clearly understood by me, then you will have a trust. You will not say that I have not been listened to. You have been listened to, therefore it is your duty to now listen to me. Then my concern will be raised and you will understand. Once you have understood, I have understood your point of view, you have understood my point of view, we may try to find the best win-win solutions. So, this is how things may happen in a bilateral transaction. So far we have seen the first part of the habit, that was seek first to understand. The second part is then seek to be understood. Once you have understood the other point of view, now it is your job to communicate to the other person what your points are, what your concerns are, what your goals, roles and missions are. It takes courage to make other person understood. And how do we do it? How do we make ourselves understood? There is a philosophy of old Greeks which says there are three things. If you wish to communicate to some person, if you wish to convince somebody, there are three things one can do. One is called ethos, other is called pathos, and third is called logos. Ethos means the character, the principles, the lofty ideas, the big gains for the societies. Pathos means pain. Pathos literally means pain. That is why we say pathy. Empathy is whatever we have said. Pathy means pains. And not only pains, it also means the feelings. And logo means logic. So, you begin with character, you begin with trust, then you add to it your feelings, your passion, and then finally you add to it the presentation or the solutions with the logic of how things are going to happen, the mechanism part or the mechanic part. Once you present your own ideas clearly and specifically and visually, and more important in the context of the deep understanding of their paradigm and concern, you will significantly increase the credibility of your ideas, because you have reflected the ideas and the context of the other people, and then you have arrived at a solution which addresses the concerns of both the parties. What is the importance of the fifth habit? Is that fifth habit, seeking to understand, is in your control. When you are seeking to understand, it is basically who is playing the active role of trying to understand, and therefore you are in control. It is in your circle of influence, and because you listen, you become influenceable and hence influencing. You are first prone to being influenced by other people. You are acting as if you are open to their ideas, and you can be easily influenced. Once they try to influence you, then only you will be able to influencing. So, because you listen to other people, you become influenceable and therefore influencing. Seeking to understand, once you try to seek to understand, then the people will open up. They will, and it will solve their problem. You will build up a network of people with whom you have positive bank account in the emotional sense, and it will then solve their problems. Once you open up, once you seek to understand, and once you solve their problems, then if you are proactive, then you know the solutions before the problems come up. For example, suppose you have tried to solve a problem of a person's of your friend's kid who is a problem kid or something like that, who is facing some problem in the school, and if you try to understand that kid, you have tried to solve his problem, you have tried to solve the specific case which he has gone through, if the similar problems comes with your kid, you will be ready with the solution. You will know beforehand what is to be done. That experience of helping other would certainly help you to solve your problems or the problems in the similar areas. So, once you solve other people's problem and once you are proactive, then opportunities to do preventive work will come in your way. What happens when I am proactive? What happens when I practice all the skills or all the habits which I have learned so far, and what will happen if the similar thing you are also doing, when other people are also doing? Suppose in a family everybody goes through this sets of principles and they seek to understand other. What will happen is that there will be more synergy between them, there will be more trust among them, they will be able to find solutions which are mutually beneficial. They will try to have the solutions which is more than their individual goals. Suppose whatever is my concern, whatever are my dreams, and suppose I place it before my family members and I understand their views, their dreams, their expectations, I may have a solution which may be more than our combined dreams. So, whenever the total sum is more than the part of the things, then it is called as synergy, when 2 plus 2 is more than 4. So, I have two things in my mind, my wife has two things in her mind. If we had individually done our try to find solutions, probably I would have got 2 of my solutions, she might have got none of them. But once we sit together, once we communicate, try to understand and do things, probably we might get more than these 4 things, we might get more than that. Once that happens, this is the concept of synergy, which we are going to see in the next lecture. But that is why I said that all these habits are overlapping, they are not independent, they are interdependent. So, this is something which we are going to see in the next lecture, how the organizations can build up. So, to summarize, there are so many things we have said, but the major things are: we should listen before we speak, we should diagnose before we prescribe, we should learn before we teach. This habit is an extension of win-win. It takes us one step ahead from the win-win. Emphatic listening, we have said, it has the steps of mimicking, rephrasing, reflecting, and rephrasing plus reflecting. Once you do all these things, then you have achieved the emphatic listening, and then this will build the trust between the two parties. When the two parties practice the habit 5, it creates a synergy which is more than their individual dreams, and that is the subject matter of the 6th habit. In the next lecture, we are going to see the 6th habit, that of synergy. Till then, goodbye.